Hi everybody. It's been a while since I've uploaded. I haven't seen anybody watching the videos that I've put up thus far, so I'm not sure. I'm gonna put this up as a test video. See if you guys are showing any interest. If not, then that's okay. I just finished reading chapter 1 of Hank the Cowdog, book 4, or book 5. And we're going to continue off on this book, and as usual, I'll read a little bit of the first chapter so that you guys can review what happened in the previous chapter, and then we'll jump right into chapter 2. So here we go. 2 questions remained unanswered. First, where was the child's mother? And second, what monster or evil force had put little Alfred's life in danger? Those were the crucial questions of the case, and you'll notice that I have arrived at them only minutes after the first alarm. My next course of action was to search for some answers, and I suspected Drover knew them. Chapter 2. The case turns out to be a piece of cake. "All right, Drover," I called out. "I'm ready to go into action. 2 questions. Where's Sally Mae?" She went inside to get her camera." "Okay, now, number 2. With whom or what do I got to combat?" Drover swallowed hard. "Aw, Hank, I hate to tell you this. It's awful." "Nothing's awful unless you believe it's awful. You're going to be scared." "I doubt that, son. Remember the silver monster bird? Remember the enormous monster? Remember the night I defended the ranch from the entire coyote nation? With that kind of combat record? Never mind. Point me towards the enemy." His teeth were chattering. "Over there by the baby. You want to know what it is?" "Might as well." "It's a giant rattlesnake, Hank." "Huh?" The hair stood up on the back of my neck. Chills rolled down my spine. All at once, I felt the cold grip of fear closing around my throat. I have very few weaknesses. Very few chinks in my armor. In fact, you might say I have only one weakness. I'm scared of snakes. Always have been. My Uncle Potsy was bitten on the face by a rattlesnake and died a horrible death. I started shaking. For a long time, I couldn't speak. The only thing that kept me from losing control was Drover. It would ruin him. I fought against the shakes and chills until at last I was able to speak. "One last question, Drover. Why didn't you handle this case by yourself? Why did you come get me?" "Oh, I didn't think I could jump the fence. My leg's been..." "Is that the only reason?" "Uh-huh. Oh. And I'm scared of snakes, especially rattlesnakes. They bite." "I see. Did it ever occur to you that I might be bitten?" "No." "Or that I might be afraid of snakes?" "Aw, heck no. So, 'cause you're not a chicken-hearted little mutt like me." "That's true, unfortunately." I took a deep breath. "Well, I guess there's nothing left to say. Nah. Just kill the snake and that'll be it." I glanced over at little Alfred, so innocent, so absorbed in his play. "Where'd you see the snake?" "In the flower bed. Right behind the baby." "Very well. So long, Drover." "So long, Hanky. I'll be waiting right here." "We can bet on that." I turned and started walking towards my fate. It's funny, the memories that come back to you such moments. I saw myself as a pup, playing tug-of-war with my sister Maggie, while Ma watched us with a contented smile. Seeing Ma that way kind of gave me courage. She's the one who taught me right from wrong. and I didn't want to disgrace her memory. My steps grew bolder, and I marched up to the flower bed. Little Alfred turned and giggled, and then smiled. "Goggy! Goggy!" I dipped my head as if to say, "How's it going, son?" Then I turned to the grim task set before me. I cocked my ear and listened. If the snake rattled, at least I would know his position and could plan my attack, so that if I got bitten, it would be on my foot instead of my face. I wanted to save my face for... that started me thinking about Beulah again. My true and perfect collie love. The only woman in the world who would make me think of romance just before going into combat with a giant rattlesnake. But her soul, she loved a bird dog. How could she love a bird dog? I shook those thoughts from my head. This was no time for romantic notions. I cocked my ear and listened. Nothing. The snake wasn't giving me any warning. This was a rotten piece of luck. I had no choice but to sniff out the flower bed and force the snake out of hiding, offering myself as a target to save young, poor little Alfred. I was shaking again, and I mean all the way down to my toenails. I crept forward, sniffing, listening, waiting for the ineffable, inedible, whatever the dadgum word is, to occur. Inevitable. Even though I was expecting a strike, it shocked me when it came. I heard a hiss, saw a blur of motion to my right, and felt a sting on the end of my nose, the very worst and most fatal place for a dog to take a snake bite. I staggered back. My eyes began to dim. I felt the poison rushing through my bloodstream. My heart pounded in my ears. As I sank to my knees, I uttered not a cry and faced my untimely end with the little shreds of courage that I could muster. As the gray veil moved across my eyes, I heard a strange voice. "Sorry about that, Hanky. You woke me up and I thought you was a big mouse." Huh? Hadn't I heard that whiny voice before? That was no snake. It was Pete the barn cat. I opened my eyes. Sure enough, there was Pete's insipid grin sneaking out from between the irises. "What are you doing in there? I thought you were a rattlesnake." Pete licked his paw. "No. He was here, but he crawled under the house. Snakes are very scared of cats, don't you know? Which is why a lot of people think cats are better at ranch security than little dogs." "Is that so?" "Uh-huh. Because cats have possessed something no cowdog in history has ever possessed." "Such as?" He arched his back and scratched the ground with his front paws. Intelligence. All at once I felt my energy coming back. I stood up. "Oh, yeah?" "And you can run along now, Hanky. And, oh my goodness, your poor little nose. It's bleeding." "Oh, yeah? Well, that's real bad news for you, cat, and here's what I'm going to do about it." I went crashing into the iris patch, landed right in the middle of Pete. I mean, just buried him. He was gonna pay dearly for that mistake. He'd drawn first blood. I was fixin' to draw second blood. About 2 gallons of it. I lifted one paw and waited to grab him with my teeth. He didn't come out. I lifted the other paw, and you might say that he'd slipped out of my trap. Funny. How a cat could go there from being 1 second and gone the next. Makes a guy wonder, how do they do that? And I mean right there in front of your eyes. Beats me. But we can be sure that it saved Pete from a tragic and messy death, because Hank the Cowdog does not take trash from cats. I didn't have much time to study on Pete's escape, because just then little Alfred came toddling out, got me in a headlock. He was still talking that "goggy" stuff, which means heroic guard dog, some type of little kid language. Little Alfred may have been little, but he was built like a lot of his old man. High loper, plenty stout in his arms and shoulders. Kinda surprised me when he throwed that headlock on me and started dragging me around like a rag doll. Didn't figure a kid that age could do that, but he sure as thunder did. And one of the things that's happened was that all at once, I couldn't breathe. Little Alfred, he had a good start on strangling me. Now we need to get something straight right here. Your top-of-the-line blue ribbon higher-bred cow dogs are famous for their incredible strength. As a group, we're probably the strongest breed of dogs ever known to mankind. I mean, shredding monsters, destroying obstacles, breaking into locked buildings, that's commonplace to us. Just part of the job. But what many people don't know is that while we're licensed by the federal government as dangerous and lethal weapons, we also have hearts of gold. We love children, and at an early age, we have to take a solemn oath never to bite a child. So here's the point. Anyone else who would have thrown a headlock on me would have had tooth tracks over 90% of his body. And I mean within a matter of seconds. It's impossible to strangulate a cow dog without several winch lines and heavy equipment, unless it's done by an innocent child. And see, our cow dog oath forbids us from biting or scratching a child. So there I was, being dragged around the yard by little Alfred, and I couldn't get my wind, and things were just starting to get a little bit serious for me. I just went limp and hoped for the best. Just before he got me snuffed out, he let go and dropped me on the grass. I sat up and caught my wind and was beginning to think about making my exit before Sally Mae came back, when the little scoundrel ran his finger across the cake, got a big glob of icing, and stuck it in front of my nose. Ordinarily, I'm not tempted by sweets. I've figured too much sweets makes a dog soft. It ain't hardship that ruins a good dog. It's the easy life. On the other hand, we don't often get recognized in this line of work. We don't demand it. We don't expect it. We go on and do our job without it. But when it comes, a guy kind of hates to turn it down. Here was this little fella offering me a small reward for a job well done. What could I do? I licked the icing right off his finger. He got some more, and well, I took to that too. Pretty good stuff. He kept dipping into the cake, and I just kept licking the icing straight off. He really got a kick out of that. He was laughing and squealing and having a wonderful time. Here was a happy child. I knew Sally Mae wanted her child to be happy. Wouldn't any mother? So when little Alfred stuck his whole hand into the cake and offered me a big chunk of that cake, I took that too. Primarily out of a sense of duty. I took a bite, and he took a bite. Me and little Alfred had become best of friends. It's just one of those things that happened. It was one of those unexpected moments when two of God's creatures sit down and share some good things in this life. Friendship and cake. I mean, we were different. We didn't speak the same language. We didn't even come from the same stock. But all at once, all of our differences did not matter. Seemed to me, little Alfred was working awful hard digging that cake out with his hand and feeding me every bite he could. So I scooched just a little bit closer to take away a lot of his work, and tried to show him how to eat cake with no hands. Just by George, stick your face in it, and go to licking and chewing. He loved that, and let me tell you, the kid was good at it. Well, we had our faces stuck in the cake and had just about eaten the west side of it when all at once, "Here it comes, sweetie. Daddy put the camera in the wrong place and the phone rang and... Alfred! What on earth? Hank!" Huh? Our heads both came up. I looked at little Alfred and he looked at me. He giggled. I didn't. If I had anywhere near as much cake on my face as he did, fellers, I was in trouble. It's hard to deny the crime when you're wearing all the evidence right on your face. Sally Mae's face turned red. You know the type of red when somebody's about to yell at you? She grabbed a rake and started towards us in what you might call an angry walk. Long, sharp steps. At a glance, I could see that this was going to be a huge misunderstanding between me and Sally Mae. She didn't understand about the giant rattlesnake in the garden, or my duty in protecting the baby, or the wonderful relationship that me and little Alfred had just built up. She probably thought I was in her yard, eating her cake, and she might have expected me to flatten her iris bed that was right behind me. I hated to walk out on little Alfred like that, but I had a pretty good idea which one of us was going to get the rake used on him, and it wasn't little Alfred. "You've ruined my cake, you hound! Get out of this yard and my flowers!" Just as I suspected, I tucked my tail and started slinking away. When she throwed the rake at me, I slink no more. I galloped. I'd solved the case of the missing rattlesnake. You might even say it had been a piece of cake, but consider this price of success. My reputation was now in shambles. And that's the end of chapter 2. We'll read on and find out what happens in chapter 3 next time. If you guys continue to tune in, we'll see. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I really enjoy reading out loud, so if I get many views, I don't think I got any on my past couple, so if I get many views, this will be done next week, just on time. So looking forward to you, hoping you guys are having a wonderful summer. See you guys later. Catch you later.